mentioned the edge rushing. You lost a lot of production with Aiden and David. How do you replicate that, or can you replicate that?
You know, to say that there's a Hutch or a Jabo like in the room right now, you know, time will tell. There's some options. I think there's schematically some things that you may have to create rushes more maybe than last year. And one of the things, you know, we got Mike Elston as our D-line coach. I think his track record of having high numbers of sacks with his D-line, you know, he's never had maybe a true elite guy there, and has done a really good job of mixing in stunts and games and things like that to create rushes. And I think that's something we're going to have to be good at. But time will tell. You know, I think there's a lot of options. There's a lot of guys that, you know, maybe felt, you know, held back a little bit by the big presence of the last two, that now get a chance to step out into their own, and I'm excited to see how it goes as we go.
How do you balance the idea of it being year 2 and continuity and bringing in some other perspectives and things that you maybe learned, whether it was at Ravens or Vanderbilt?
You know, I think I honestly think it's like year 1 is just the first step, and so, you know, year 2, I think you always look at things you can do better. Maybe look at tweaks you can make to the system. And so there's ideas that things that I've done, things that other coaches that we have on staff have done at previous places. And so we'll always look to find a better way to do things. I think that's you know, what a good coach, what a good staff does is always, you know, try to take that next step. So, you know, there'll be some things that may look different, but I think a lot of it will look the same.
You obviously had your experience with the Ravens, but do you think of yourself as more of a college-minded coach?
That's certainly how I came up. You know, my dad's a good college coach for 35, 40 years. Sort of how I grew up in the locker room, grew up in college programs. So I enjoy the college game. I enjoy the development piece of it, where you get guys that are 17, 18 years old, try and help them get where they want to go. Enjoy the recruiting piece of it to really, like, you know, in the NFL you get 1 first-round pick, and in college, if you really work at it, you work at recruiting, you can get a lot of guys, and so I enjoy that piece of it, and just enjoy the you know, the continuity that comes with college football, and the pageantry. Excited to coach in the big house and all that type of stuff. So yeah, I would say this is where I fit.
What was the biggest adjustment for you moving back to college last year, just in terms of the game?
You know, just keeping up with scheme trends. I think I do think there's a lot of carryover in the NFL and college nowadays, but I think in college there's a tempo aspect of things that certain teams run. There's much more variation week to week. You know, in the SEC, you play Mississippi State one week, who run the air raid. You play Georgia the next week, who's going to line up in 12 and 13 personnel and try to run the ball down your throat. So the variation and having a versatile scheme that can match up on all that. There's unbalanced things in college that you're allowed to do that you're not even allowed to do in the NFL, that I think, you know, we have to sort of see what the trend was there. Mostly that type of stuff.
You mentioned your dad. What's his role here, and I guess what's that mean to you to have him?
You know, he's an analyst here. He's my dad. He's probably who I've learned the most from in football. He's always been a resource for me wherever I've been at. He lived in Nashville last year, and so we spent a lot of time together. So I'm thrilled to have him here, and glad Coach Harbaugh was able to you know, offer him an opportunity, and you know, appreciate his presence and his wisdom, just not only for me but for the rest of the defensive staff as well.
Babysitting duties as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
With so much coaching change in the coaching staff over the past couple of years, have you had to do anything extra to feel like you gained the trust of some of the older players in the room? You
know, I think trust is just built over time. I think it's built on relationships. I think it's built on honest feedback. And so I think a strength of mine in my career has been the ability to develop relationships with players. It's not something that happens overnight, so you can't just walk in the first day and expect them all to trust you, or, you know, especially when you're replacing a guy that did a really good job. But you know, I think it's just built over time, relationships, and I enjoy that aspect of it. And so First of all, it started with the coaches. I was here maybe 2.5 weeks before spring ball started. These guys were all looking at me. I'm new to them too, you know, and so I had to build a relationship with the staff, then to start building a relationship with the players. I think in the post-spring world, after seeing all these guys practice and being around them, we'll be able to dive even deeper into that and be ready for August.